Available in paperback at e-readers, Isis, Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. It looks like Disney's efforts to try to reach a larger female audience with its superhero and sci-fi content hasn't worked out. Now, according to a Cosmic Book News article, Disney's approach to try to reach women with content as related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Star Wars has basically bombed, and they're not really reaching the female fans that they wanted to target with their content, such as She-Hulk Attorney at Law, the MCU movie The Marvels, or Star Wars sequel trilogy. And because this content really is not doing well in the ratings, it's clear that the whole campaign to try to reach that larger audience of women isn't working out, and Disney has taken huge losses as related to bombs at the box office, low ratings on its Disney Plus streaming service, not to mention the piles of merchandise featuring these female-led shows that winds up rotting on store shelves before it winds up getting transferred to Ollie's to be sold at clearance prices. Now, Disney is desperate to try to reach a female audience because they looked at the demographics as related to the American and Western population, and as they see that the American and Western population is a majority women, what they wanted to do was try to target a large female audience with the characters of popular franchises such as the Star Wars brand and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And they thought if they created shows and movies featuring strong heroines, this would appeal to the large audience of women out there. Unfortunately, what has happened is that instead of them appealing to that large audience of women, what they did was basically alienate their base of men who had been watching all of this science fiction and fantasy and superhero content for the last 30 to 40 years. And as they've gone out and alienated their mostly male customer base, they found that the attempts to try to appeal to women with these female-centered shows basically was not really impacting them at all, because most women weren't interested in this kind of content from the beginning. Now, most women, when it comes to fantasy and science fiction, this usually isn't their thing, because most women usually like romance and adventure. Unfortunately, you couldn't tell it to the executives at Disney, who basically bought into the feminist idea that men and women are the same. Unfortunately, when it came to the time to see the demographics, it was clear that men and women have completely different ideas as related to science fiction and fantasy and superhero content. Now, when it comes to men mainly go to watch this type of content because it's an escape from the real world, and it allows them to see males who are strong and masculine going out here and achieving a goal. And that fits right in line with the way men operate, because men are logical and men like to see action and adventure. And when it comes to women, yes, there are women who do like to watch content like the MCU and Star Wars movies. However, they watch content like the MCU and Star Wars for completely different reasons. And the reasons that many women watch that kind of content is, one, because of the handsome, muscular men who are acting masculine, and that escape for them is to see a man actually being masculine and strong, and see themselves in the place of the love interest, and see themselves being in that fantasy with that man. That is the reason why a lot of women liked the original Star Wars trilogy, because there was a handsome man in Han Solo who was the roguish pirate, and Princess Leia was in the arms of the roguish pirate Han Solo. That romance basically was the thing that made the Star Wars trilogy appealing to most women. And when it came to the prequel, the Amidala Anakin storyline was appealing to women because women liked that romance and adventure. And when it came to superhero movies like Iron Man and Captain America, it was again the love interests that were the ones that made the women identify with the whole story. Whether it be Pepper Potts or Peggy Carter, they basically related to the women being at the side of that handsome hero, and they wanted to see the romance build between the handsome hero and the woman. That is what have been drawing women into superhero movies ever since 1978 with Superman, the movie with Lois Lane, 1989 with Vicky Vale in 1989's Batman, and even in 2002's Spider-Man, we would have Mary Jane. Again, the romance between Peter Parker and Mary Jane, those were things that appealed to viewers. Even in 1998's Blade and Bushy Wright's character at the side of Blade, this is what really drew women in to see these superhero movies, that they would go out on dates with their boyfriends. Usually when women go to a superhero movie, they go on a date with their boyfriend to go see these movies because they just want to spend time with their boyfriends. But what draws them into this movie is seeing this romance. And again, this is where Disney got it all twisted. They thought that people wanted to see a feminist idea of a strong woman, but the whole thing is that many women were not interested in being feminist or seeing feminist ideas of strong women, and that basically turned off most of the women as related to watching any sort of product that was presented by Marvel Studios or Lucasfilm, because the heroines were not women that most women related to. No, when it came to these heroines, they were presented as quote-unquote strong feminist women, but those strong feminist women with their masculine traits turned off most of the largely female audience that they were targeting, and they turned them off because those women did not express character traits that most of the female audience related to or identified with. No, when it came to these strong women, they were basically too masculine for most women. Yes, they were ones that had traits that feminists like, but the population of feminists out there is not as large as the population of most women, and most women basically wanted to see women, but they wanted to see women in a story model that basically showed them a character they related to, a character who had their experiences, and a character that basically was one that had a life that they wanted to live. That was another problem that Disney basically failed on with its approach to heroines. They gave us heroines that did not live lives that women wanted to live. I mean, women go to the movies, again, for an escape, and they don't really want to live the life of a masculine woman like a Carol Danvers in a Captain Marvel. They don't want to live a dysfunctional life of a Jennifer Walters like She-Hulk attorney at law, and they don't want to be a Mary Sue like a Rey Skywalker who basically does nothing to achieve or accomplish anything. None of these women had character traits that any woman could relate to, and that's why these shows basically fell flat and did not build the audience that their predecessors that were created by men, such as Joss Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Sam Raimi and Robert Tapper's Xena Warrior Princess were able to build. Now, in the case of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, created by Joss Whedon, and Xena Warrior Princess, created by Sam Raimi and Robert Tapper, those shows basically had characters who were women could relate to, and they had characters that women could relate to because those characters basically were living lives that women had lived, and they also were an escape to a world where they saw a role for a woman in that fantasy world. Now, when it came to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she was a teenage girl living a teenage life, and as the Slayer, she was in a world where she was having a place where she was being mentored by an older man, Giles. She had a relationship with her mother, which a lot of women have, and she also had a boyfriend who was a vampire angel as she was going on her quest to learn how to be a slayer. Not to mention, she had an active social life with friends like Willow and Cordelia and Xander, and again, these are things that women could relate to as related to Buffy's life, and women loved Buffy because Buffy was living the life that women wanted to live, where they were an active part of a community, they were an active part of a family, they had an active social life. But you didn't see that with these characters that were ironically created by women, such as Rey Skywalker, such as Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk Attorney at Law, or Echo. I mean, when I look at these shows, I don't see any of the elements that a woman has in her life, such as a BFF best friend, places that they love to go to hang out at, or guys that they are interested in. You never saw that kind of structure for a life, not to mention a relationship with a parent, such as a mother or a father. I mean, these type of social relationships are key to making a series with a heroine work. I mean, a heroine's world is completely different from a hero's world. In a hero's world, it's about how that man is about building and overcoming obstacles, but when it comes to heroines, you have to really work on the personal relationships, because when it comes to writing women are all about the relationships that they have with the people in their lives. And when you're doing a story with a heroine, the feud between the heroine and her antagonist is all based on relationships. This is what is missing from a lot of Disney's whole approach to Marvel and Star Wars, and this is why their series fail as related to most of their shows, because it doesn't have that interpersonal relationship between the heroine and her friends and family, like on Buffy or on Xena, where there was this deep interpersonal relationship between Xena and Gabrielle, and even Xena and her mother for a couple of episodes, and Gabrielle and Xena and the Amazons. Again, the focus was on the relationships, and the relationships were a big part of making Xena popular, and the biggest episodes with Xena were, again, all about that relationship between her and Gabrielle, and that love and friendship that was almost like sisters, not to mention the feud between Xena and Callisto, which got real personal. This is what really made that show work, but Disney's people really haven't done the research into why and what makes a relationship between women work on TV shows, like I have when I was out here crafting and developing heroines for the SJS Direct universe. When I was crafting heroines, I would watch shows like The Bionic Woman, I would watch shows like Wonder Woman, I would watch shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Xena Warrior Princess, and I would also watch all other types of superhero content. And again, I understood that, again, there's a difference between what appeals to males and what appeals to females. And Disney did have a bit of a good formula with the show Agent Carter. I mean, Agent Carter had all of the elements of a good show, but sadly Disney canceled Agent Carter in the second season, just as the show was getting its legs. Agent Carter was a solid show that people were getting into, but it didn't really fit Marvel's whole idea of heroes, and they wound up canceling Agent Carter, which a lot of women liked, and some women even liked Jessica Jones. Now, I wasn't a fan of Jessica Jones, but the whole thing is that those shows did better than the ones that they did designed to target women, and the whole thing is that When you look at Jessica Jones and Agent Carter, again, they follow the same model of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Xena Warrior Princess in that the heroine is having relationships with people and having interpersonal relationships. Again, this is what makes women like a heroine, is seeing her have a life that they want to live. And that's part of the escape, is seeing a character having a life they want to live. And the problem over at Disney is that they're trying to do this whole approach to so-called diversity, as they call it in comic book news, but I just call it just plain old, you just don't know how to write stories for women in science fiction and fantasy. You know, what they did in the case of She-Hulk Attorney at Law was hire an inexperienced writer in Jessica Gao to be the showrunner for that show, a woman who knew nothing about law, knew nothing about superheroes, but wanted to give us a quote-unquote strong heroine, and gave us one of the worst shows out there. And in the case of Star Wars, we had Kathleen Kennedy out here making Rey a Mary Sue, a character nobody could relate to, a character no one could relate to, because this character basically never had any sort of challenges or obstacles that women could relate to. No, these feminists wanted to create these characters, and they were ones that nobody cared about. Not to mention, when it came to these characters, they were too afraid to let these characters go through conflicts, problems, or obstacles, or deal with any sort of issue that would lead to them having a full character transformation arc. Because one of the things that alienates a lot of fans, whether it be male or female, from most heroines, is the fact that they never really put those characters through any sort of obstacles that allow them to overcome any challenge. This has been a problem with superheroes and fantasy heroines ever since the early days of superheroine comics. And it's when it comes to superheroine comics, they would always put them up against jobbers, and these jobbers would really be no challenge to them at all as related to power set to show us or showcase how they can overcome obstacles. And that's always been a problem as related to heroines, as related to most writers, because some writers, due to the gynocentrism, what they do is become emotionally attached to those characters, and as they become emotionally attached to those characters, they don't want those characters to lose, they don't want those characters to fail, they don't want those characters to fall down, but it's those obstacles that endear us to those characters and allow us to identify with them, because that person is in a situation we are in, and as they're in a situation we are in, what we do is I relate to that person and see a way to overcome ourselves. I mean, this is not something that's hard when you understand the whole paradigm for heroines. Now, as somebody who's been writing heroines for years, I know that it's something that you have to do, put these heroines through their paces. I mean, I had to do this with characters like Isis, Esteem, and Matilda Crowley, and even the Colleen character from the Thetas. I had to put those characters through obstacles and put them through those challenges, because that would make them relatable to women. And when I did that in books like the Isis series and the Esteem series and the Spinsterella trilogy and the Thetas, people, especially women, related to those characters. I mean, I remember seeing glowing reviews for the Thetas and the Isis and Esteem books from women, because they could relate to those characters, relate to their struggles, relate to the obstacles that they faced, and relate to them because they were living a life that they were living, or a life that they wanted to live. And when you have characters that relate, that people can relate to, it answers that question a screenwriter has to answer before we put fingers to the keyboard. And that critical question we have to answer is, why should we care? That was something that I had to think about before I put fingers to the keyboard to write any heroine, because I understand that when you write heroines, it's all about the interpersonal relationships and the social life that this character has. And it's all about us getting to know this woman. And this woman needs to be somebody that girls see as a best friend, girls see as somebody they want to spend time with and hang out with, somebody who's living a life that they think is cool. These are things that girls need to see in this character if you want the character to be somebody that they care about. Moreover, when it comes to the guys, you really do need the guys to get into this girl, because when the guys get into this girl, what they're going to do is become curious about this woman. And since the guy is into this woman, what this woman is going to say, hey, let me take a look at this heroine. Maybe there's something here that I can use to build a stronger relationship with my man. And that's what a lot of women will do. But when you don't understand how women operate and think in some cases as related to fandom, you wind up creating these masculine characters that turn women off. And they turn women off because instead of them relating to that woman, they see her as an adversary. And as they see her as an adversary, they see her as a woman they don't want to spend time with. And they see her as somebody who basically is someone in their life, like one of their bosses at the job, or that bitter chick who basically gives them a hard time. And that's not the woman you want to sell to women. No, when you're selling to women, you want to be that woman to be someone who is soft and feminine, someone who is really cool and confident, somebody who is somebody that they can look at and say, hey, that could be me, or that could be me with my man. That's what women want to see in a woman. From my experience selling heroines, what women want to see is a woman who is like, hey, that's somebody I could be a friend with, or that's somebody I could go out here and pick up some skills from trying to make my man happy. I mean, they look at the woman and they go, I like the way that she dresses. I like the way that she talks. I like the way that she makes me feel. She makes me feel comfortable, because women are emotional, and that's why you need her to be a friend. You need her to be a girl next door, somebody that girls want to be friends with, somebody that girls want to hang out with, somebody that girls can say, hey, I've been where this woman is, and say that I can be like where this woman is. And if I see her becoming this heroine and transforming into this heroine, I can transform into a heroine who has the strength of character. And again, this is where it's essential for heroines. It's not about physical strength, because physical strength is about competing with a man. But what the heroine needs to do is complement the men. And that's why Xena and Buffy got over, because they complemented the men in their lives. I mean, Buffy complimented Giles in being a woman who was under a leader. She complimented Angel in that she was a complement to him being a vampire and sympathizing with him emotionally as related to his struggles. And Xena related to Hercules in that Hercules was a god and complimented him in being a warrior woman who was complimenting Hercules on his journeys. And again, women want to see how that heroine compliments a man. That's what makes her attractive to women, because she looks at those handsome hunks on the screen of those movies like Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, and what they want to see is how that woman compliments that man. And that's the thing that really gets them excited, because Leia complimented Luke and Han in that she was the princess. Yes, she was strong as related to having strength of character to stand up to the Empire. But when it came to the physical labor, she let guys like Luke and Han go out here and be the men. And that's what the women want to see in a man. They want to see that masculinity. They want to see that strength. And this is where Disney gets it all wrong as related to its heroines. Again, you can have a show with a heroine. You can have a series with a heroine, because I have books like the Isis series. It's got a heroine and the goddess next door, but that goddess next door is a girl next door who complements male characters like John Haynes in stories. And Even though she has great physical power, her strength of character is the thing that makes her attractive. Same thing for the Esteem character, who I brought into into John Haynes' world in the SJS Direct universe in the Temptation of John Haynes. The Esteem character, even though she had demonic powers and now has avatar powers from a god, she complements John Haynes in that she is the one helping him understand this world of the supernatural with her 4,000 years of expertise, and she also goes on solo adventures and gets guidance from John Haynes about this world. So they basically work together and complement each other, and as they complement each other, the women who buy the books see how this woman is, again, she's beautiful, she's attractive, she's in this job as John's assistant, and as they're working together, women see, oh, she's got strength, she's got power, she's got influence, and even though she's got superpowers, she's still working with a man, and that makes the woman attractive to other women. Not to mention, Esteem and Isis are snazzy dressers, and when it comes to the Matilda character, she's a black goth, but as a black goth, she complements the male characters like her father and her brother, and her boyfriend, the Quiet Man, in the later Spinsterella book. And again, the woman, yes, she is the center focus of the story, but she's got a rich personal life with friends and family. And again, all of these things are the things that women find appealing. But if you look at Star Wars, if you look at She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, or Echo, those women are mostly alone. And as they are alone, they're out here just living miserable lives that are not really fulfilling. They're living lives where they're not really enjoying life, and their lives are not ones that women relate to, because women want to be seeing someone who is at least having a good time and is someone enjoying life. And we saw that with the male heroes like Iron Man, Captain America, and even Luke Skywalker. In spite of his struggles, we saw those characters again taking us to an escape. That was fun. But we didn't see this with these diversity heroines who basically are there just to be tokens with no real substance of story. And that's why these shows are bombing for Disney in their efforts to try to appeal to women. They don't really appeal to women. Yes, they make feminists who work at Disney feel good by creating these shows, but they don't really relate to most women and their struggles, and they don't really show that woman overcoming obstacles or overcoming challenges. That's what makes these characters out here who are heroines attractive. I mean, I know this from doing books in the Isis series, such as the Wrath of the Cyber Goddess storyline, where Isis had to overcome her own personal issues, and the Vampire Saga, where those issues got even worse, and a full character transformation arc where the character had to grow as a character. And even in the case of the Esteem character, she had to overcome issues that most women have, like really issues as related to feeling beautiful and attractive. I even did that in the story Isis, the Beauty Myth. I mean, women want to see stories about women who are just like them. They don't want this social justice feminist whole narrative of the strong, independent woman who don't need a man, because most women want a man in their lives, and they watch shows to get tips on how to get that man to pay attention to them. And in fantasy shows, if you want to appeal to women, you've got to make those shows where the women are out here and can see a life that they want to live. And that's why many of Disney shows are failing. Women don't see themselves in these characters like Rey Skywalker or Echo or She-Hulk Attorney at Law or Carol Danvers Captain Marvel. No, women don't want to be the lead. They want to follow. They want to see a man they can help out. They want to see a man that they can have a relationship with. I mean, that was one of the things that made Bionic Woman a big show, was that she was Steve Austin's girlfriend. And when it came to Wonder Woman in the 70s, it was the relationship between her and Steve Trevor that was the big draw for women. Not to mention that that all these women were eye candy. And again, most women want to look at an attractive woman for ways that they can appeal to their man. So when I look at Disney's whole approach, their whole approach failed because they wanted to give us these feminist indoctrinated ideas that really weren't going to work. Because if you look at Agent Carter, that show appealed to men because it was a woman who was attractive, and when it came to women, they saw a woman that they wanted to be like, and that's why that show got over, whereas their newer shows didn't do well. And again, women love action and adventure, but you have to have some romance in that story for those women to get into that story. I mean, you gotta have some romance in there because women want to see a place for themselves in that man's life, and the guys basically want to see the attractive girl. But you have Disney, who thinks that they can give us a story about a feminist and not a woman. And again, feminists are a small audience, and that's why these shows aren't doing well, because women want a completely different experience than a feminist. And when they see a show targeting a feminist who basically is a woman who only is either attracted to other women or wants to emasculate men, most women aren't interested in that, and that's why these shows do so poorly. And that's why this whole approach by Disney, again, an approach that they have looking to approach women by giving them strong masculine women who are basically going to be seen as an adversary to most men. This is why these shows alienate most men, because they see these shows as basically out here presenting a man with another adversary. And again, when men go to watch fantasy, they go to escape to the fantasy. And when they go see a feminist on the screen, they basically see the female boss they deal with at the job. They see the nagging, annoying wife or the nagging, annoying mother. And that basically turns those guys off and turns them off, because this is not a woman they want to spend time with. No, they want to spend time with a dream woman. And most women don't want to spend time with that type of woman, because that woman, again, is another adversary for them on the job. And she's not looking to help them out. And again, turns these women off as related to these stories. And this is where these guys get it all at Disney twisted, because you got feminists in charge. And these feminists want to make their ideas of women the ideal, but their ideals of women are a turnoff. And these feminists like Kathleen Kennedy and many others who are in charge at Disney basically are making it where their whole approach isn't working, but their whole solution to it is to do more of the same, because to go back to the softer women is sexist in their eyes. But that's the definition of insanity, doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result, because men and women are different. Men and women watch shows for different reasons, and those shows have to have things that appeal to both men and women. If you hope to get your network off as related to ratings, you have to appeal to those men and women based on the things that men and women want. But it seems like Disney doesn't want to do that. They insist that they're going to have their diversity and inclusion, but the whole thing is their approach to diversity and inclusion isn't including people as related to their lives, and that's why most of their shows are failing to reach that female audience, because you're not giving women what they want and giving them the stories that they want to see on the air. Now, if you want to pick up my stories featuring heroines, such as the ISIS series, the Esteem series, and books like The Temptation of John Haynes, which have action, adventure, and romance, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And you can also find them at big box retailers like Walmart and Target, and digital retailers like Draft Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and you can also find my other books featuring heroines, such as the sorority novel The Thetas, and my books in the Spinsterella trilogy, such as Spellbound, The Legendary Mad Matilda, and Spinsterella, and the upcoming Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. These heroines, again, are living lives like regular women. They're friends to people, and they have great relationships in between the pages of their stories. And you can find those books in paperback and Kindle format on Amazon.com, Draft Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers, along with the ISIS and Esteem series. And if you'd like to see me make more videos talking all about comics, science fiction, and fantasy. You can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteem, Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem, Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteem, Horror of the Hyena Woman. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a wicked werewolf in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get Esteem, Horror of the Hyena Woman in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online booksellers everywhere today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.